everyone, and welcome to a very special edition of Designing Your Life Live. Now, as you know, we bring you Bill and Dave, or Bill and Dave, every other Friday around lunchtime Pacific. But today we have a super special show for you. In fact, we're connecting all corners of the country and the world for that matter. As you can tell, it's dark where I am here in Dubrovnik, Croatia. Hello to all the life designers in Eastern Europe. I hope if you're tuning in on this lovely Friday evening that we keep you entertained. And additionally, we're bringing in a VIP guest to join us from Southern California. We have Mo, the founder of 33 Voices, an excellent journalist, creative, and human who, as he says, goes beyond the headlines to get the real story behind the movers and shakers in technology and communication. He's one of the first people to interview Bill and Dave about designing your life, and we are elated to be with him again years later now, believe it or not, to discuss the future of designing your life. And we have a whole crew of life designers actually joining us as well alongside him, which is a special treat. Hello, Mo. Welcome to the show, and thank you so much for inviting such a beautiful crew of people. Did you plan the room to match the book cover? Because you did an excellent job.
It was all by design. It was all through my design thinking exercises. But I have about 25 of my dear friends here with me in Newport Beach, California. It is absolutely wonderful. They are led by someone who I deeply admire in the finance industry. And one of the things that I've always felt being in this industry is that if they can incorporate some of the thinking of Silicon Valley, some of the principles behind the Design Your Life course, not only would their life improve, but I think their entire reality would change. I think we tapped into it a little bit this morning. I'm anxious to get started with Bill, but I want to just go back about 4 years ago, I think it was, Bill. I read an article in Fast Company. It was a little tiny, I think, one-page article that got me so intrigued about this philosophy. I got so excited I wanted to share it with the world. I reached out to Bill immediately. Graciously, he reached back, and we had one of the most fabulous interviews that I've ever had in the decade that I've been doing this. To see that it has come this far not only elates me, but gets me super excited to figure out how we can play a role in trying to take this beyond Stanford. So, Bill, I'm going to turn it over to you, and we look forward to having not only a productive conversation, but most importantly, people to just give themselves a chance to incorporate your thinking.
Real quick, let's just get a wave from all those lovely people in Newport. Hello, life designers. Woo!
Okay, that's fantastic, and thank you so much, Mo, for the very kind introduction. Yeah, it's hard to imagine that it was 4 years ago, but I got an email. You know, we were just in the process of writing a book, and I got an email from Mo because we'd done a little bit of publicity, and the guy said, I think Ainsley, what's Ainsley's last name? Ainsley Johnson or something at Fast Company had picked up a story, and which in a very nice piece in us. And Mo called us and said, or emailed me and said, hey, can we talk? And I thought, oh, and I looked it up, and I thought, 33 Voices, look at the people you've had on. It was amazing. Like, I'm super happy to talk to you. And you did another thing, Mo. You made a really nice slide deck from our conversation. You posted that. And I think if you Google Designing Your Life, that slide deck is one of the top 2 or 3 hits. So I was very happy to be able to re-engage now that the book's out and we've got a lot of readers and a lot of life design groups out in the world. We're tracking with Savannah about 400 different book clubs, or what we call design teams, who are working through the ideas in the book together. And our whole Dave and my whole idea about even writing the book was, like you say, to get it off campus. You know, it's great to teach here at Stanford. It's a real privilege to work with the students I get to work with. But there's only, 7,000 undergraduates, and even if everybody took the class, it wouldn't really have the kind of impact that we want to have. There's just some crazy statistics in the business world I think Gallup does a poll every other year, and in that poll, 85% of the people basically respond that they are not engaged in their job, that they do not like their work. And so 85% of the working population in the United States is getting up on Monday morning and going, oh crap, I've got to go to work. And if we could just put a little bit of a dent in that by people realizing that actually, the way they work and the way they live their lives is really a really creative and open-ended and really exciting design problem. And we wanted to give people exposure to this idea of design thinking through the lens of designing their lives, and hoping that would be helpful. And happy to say our editor just at Knopf, Vicki Wilson, just emailed us that we're in our 8th printing now. So we're way more than we ever expected to be in the world, and it's really exciting. And it's super to be working with you guys. So let's sort of get started a little bit. We don't talk about it too much in the book. So, but since you're here and I've got you live, I want to give you just a little bit of background. You know a little bit about my background. I'm the executive director here at Stanford. I teach in design. And before I started, full-time here about 10 years ago, I was in industry. I worked at Apple for 7 years. I had my own consulting firm for about 10 years. I've done a couple of startups. So I was always in the working world, but I used to come to Stanford 1 quarter every year and teach a class. So I've been having office hours with students since about 1984. And whether they're senior students or master students or PhD students, they all have the same question. What's it going to be like when I'm out in the real world and I'm working? And so we were having these conversations over and over, and I kept saying, it's going to be great, but you have to design it. You can't just let it happen, right? The default reality will not be the one you want. You want to design something. And Dave had been over at Berkeley, a little school across the bay here. Not a bad place, but it's
not Stanford.
Yeah. No, it's a great place. And he had been teaching a similar class over there that he said that it was kind of finding the job you love is your calling was his little play on words. So we got together and started thinking about how could we have a conversation with more than one student at a time. And that turned into a class originally just for my seniors in my major called The Designer's Voice. You want to be a designer, but how are you going to be it? What's your voice going to be in the world? And then the Career Center and a bunch of other people asked if we could do more with it. And so the class has turned into now, hitting about 600 or 700 students a year here on campus. But I still felt that we had a message that would be useful because we were now also going out and talking to people in their 20s and 30s, that are kind of in the middle of starting up their career or in the middle of their career. We did a couple of workshops with folks who were in their retirement phase of their life, And that's interesting because retirement's sort of, in some cases, moving up. People are retiring earlier, or even if they retire in their 60s, they're healthier, they have more capacity, and they're really, they don't want to just sit around and golf. They want to do something important. We call it moving from the money-making side of their life to the meaning-making side. So we were having these conversations with all these people, and I thought, okay, we can figure out how to put this in a book. And with the help of Vicki Wilson at Knopf and with a tremendous agent, Doug Abrams, and a helpful development writer, Laura Love, we put this thing together. And it's been more successful than we ever expected. But the whole reason I think it works is that, first of all, I never wanted to write a self-help book. I don't like self-help books because I think they just make me feel bad. In the end, I can't ever do any of the things the self-help book wants me to do because it's too hard. I thought we were going to write a design book, and I insisted with our editor that it be a design book. And she said, well, there is no category called design books, so we're in the self-help aisle. But I think the reason it's different is because it comes from human-centered design. We tested every one of these things, the things you did this morning, where you did your work view and your life view and try to create your compass, what guides your life, and you worked on your dashboard, right? Those are the things that we've tried again and again and again. And we know that they work because we've iterated the prompts and the assignment and the instructions and the graphics probably dozens of times in every one of these cases. And so people report, hey, I can actually do this. It's not that hard. We like to set the bar low, jump it, set the bar low again and jump it. It comes from the work of we build all of this program off of design thinking as the innovation methodology, and then positive psychology, which is the study of how healthy people have happy lives. And this notion of guided mastery, Albert Bandura, who's one of the giants of psychology, found that the best way to break a habit or to learn a new habit is to break it into very, very small steps, have very small wins, set the bar low, jump it, set the bar low, jump it. He called it guided mastery. David Kelly calls it building your creative confidence. And so all those ideas are baked in here, but they've been tried again and again and again with lots of people. So we're pretty sure that because it was human-centered in its design, it's stuff you can actually do. Let me ask one question of the work group that Mo's assembled. He asked you to come in, so with a little bit of homework, you had to write a work view. What's your theory of work? Why do you work? And a life view, kind of what's the big picture. And then in the role before we started this Facebook Live, we talked about how you create the integration of those two things. And then when you have that coherent integration, that's when your life starts to, you have a compass to build meaning in your life against. But let me ask a question for anyone in the group. How was it actually writing those two things down? Because that's not something you probably have done before. It's an unusual, we only asked for 250 words, a half a page. But what was it like when you actually had to write those things down? Does anybody have a response?
It was eye-opening for me.
Okay. Yeah, tell me more.
To me, they were very coherent, and perhaps it's because I've been working on some of these topics for the last 12 weeks, but I found that once I got to writing my life view after my work view, I didn't have as much to write because I'd already written it in my work view. Because work is at 9 to 5, it's all the things you do, the efforts you make all day long with your family, with your marriage, with your friends. So that all encompassed my life view.
And it sounds like since you've been working on these ideas for a while, creating the life view wasn't that difficult, and that there was an automatic coherence with your work view. I'm wondering, how did it feel to actually articulate it, to write it down on a piece of paper? Did that make it more or less, dynamic for you?
It did make it more dynamic and more real, in that I'm actually, when you're writing the words, not just thinking it, but you're actually writing it down, it to me is, I am living my life view at work as well as day to day.
Yeah, and there's two principles behind this, and they're both important, and they can come from positive psychology. One is just noticing things tends to reinforce that those things are going to happen in your life. It's that simple phenomenon. As soon as you buy a red car, you notice, wow, there's a lot of red cars on the road. I never noticed. As soon as you write, and you have to write it down. It actually turns out writing it down. There's been some studies writing it out longhand on a pad is actually stickier than typing it, although nowadays we mostly type things into word processor. But there seems to be something about the physical manifestation of actually writing when you kind of own your words, and then when you see them on a piece of paper, they come back to you. And if they're true, if you haven't just written something that's kind of aspirational but not really who you are, if they're true, that reinforcing cycle of reading it again and reinterpreting the reading tends to make it so that you really own that information and you own it in a different way. And then the idea of physical, of two modes of recognition. One is physical and one is visual. That will make the thing you wrote more alive in your daily experience because you're noticing things now. Oh, this is part of my coherency. This is the thing I do every day. I notice that. So it's an interesting phenomenon because it's very simple. It's just a matter of bringing something to consciousness, and we use writing and some other techniques in the book and in the class to make that happen. Did anybody else have a different experience or something else that they could share about writing these two things down and thinking about them? What came up for you?
I don't know. Can you see me over here, or should I get in front of the camera?
You're a disembodied voice. Why don't you slide around so we can see you, so that the whole world can see you? There you are. Hi. What's your name?
My name is Tim Voorhees.
Hi, Tim.
And I'm a wealth counselor. I help clients design their lives, and very often it's wealthy clients helping their kids and grandkids design their lives.
Fantastic.
My questions concern scalability. Now, to answer your question, I did a copy and paste because I've been a big believer in life planning for decades, so I just copied my life view and my work view.
Mm-hmm.
Statements that work well for me. But the question is, how do I scale that to my clients and their kids and grandkids? In your book, chapter 11, you talk about teamwork and mentors. So
Yeah.
are there well-equipped mentors who can come in and help us advisors, help our clients design their lives?
I imagine right now there are no certified or trained life designers from the point of view of our methodology. But one of the things, I think one of the reasons I was excited that Mo got this group together is that you guys are inherently helping people design, at least through the lens of finance, right? You're helping people design a financial future, a retirement future, or something about, giving them financial advice. So you are essentially financial mentors. And but money doesn't exist in a vacuum. It exists to enable the things we want in our lives, right? And to give us security and things. So I'm actually thinking, we get approached by lots of life coaches and other people in that sort of domain. There people are doing life coaching or trying to sell services for people to help them organize their lives. I'm actually more interested in some ways in what you guys are doing, because I think the fundamental conversation about wanting my future to work out the way I want, there is, that will be enabled. I will have more chance to have the opportunities to do the things that I hope are in my future if I have a good plan, right? If I have a good financial plan. So I'm almost wondering whether or not you are the likely candidates to be the life design coaches, because you're bringing in this other lens of my financial future in addition to my other Odyssey plans. And we don't address that very specifically in the book, but I think maybe that's in book 2, designing your financial life. I don't know.
Quick pause, just while you all ponder that. We had some small technical difficulties on Facebook. So Facebook viewers, hang tight. We're going to do a real quick reboot here. Rob, thank you for handling that and catching it very early on. We will be back, fear not. Everyone in the room and with us physically here in our digital green room, don't worry, everything carries on just like normal for us. Thank you, everyone, especially Leonardo. Hello, new life designer in the coaching group. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you in just a second.
Okay.
Carry on.
All right. So